Welcome to TV Free Baltimore's Books and Authors. In this episode, we visit with the publisher of Nostalgia Digest, Steve Darnall.
I'm the publisher of Nostalgia Digest, which is a quarterly magazine about the golden age of entertainment. So we'll always have some articles in each issue about radio and movies and music, early television, sometimes just people who remember what it was like to be alive then. We just published an article about the family coal bin, which you don't see much of anymore. So we thought any chance to bring back those memories would be good. And I took over as the publisher of this magazine back in 2005.
How long was it in existence before that?
It began as a newsletter back in 1974. A fellow by the name of Chuck Shaden was the publisher for many years. It developed into a magazine format, a digest-sized magazine, and then became a quarterly in 2003, and like I say, I took it over a couple of years after that.
What got you interested in nostalgia?
I discovered the golden age of radio when I was about 12. There was a show on in Chicago that played old-time radio called Those Were the Days, and the host was playing Fibber McGee and Molly, which for a 12-year-old, that's brilliant humor. It really, and it's still pretty funny for adults, but it was perfect for a 12-year-old. And from there, I really just sort of dove in and grabbed hold of anything I could. So I was learning about Vic and Sade and Jack Benny and Fred Allen and yours truly, Johnny Dollar, and Lights Out, all those great shows.
Easy Aces?
Easy Aces? Isn't that awful? And from that, it was sort of a springboard to want to learn about other things from that era, the movies and the music. And over time, you develop other interests as you grow and mature, but I always had an affection for that culture and that era and that time in history. You know, I think history books tell us a lot about who won what war and who signed what treaty, but not so much about, you know, how did we live during the war? How did we buy our soap and our coffee? And what did we think was acceptable in terms of behavioral norms? And the entertainment from that era tells you an awful lot in that regard.
Do you write all the articles?
I'm the publisher. I have written articles, but we draw upon some very talented freelance writers, some of whom I've known for some time, some of whom come out of the blue and say, I'd like to write an article for you about this, and we say, go right ahead. So we've got writers from all over the country. We've had writers from Canada and England and Australia. So yeah, it's just been an absolute delight to get to work with those people and to channel their passions. You know, I think I've always said that the Digest has a combination of experience and excitement in terms of the writers. And so, you know, you can work with people who are really, really excited for the chance to write about Al Jolson or Boris Karloff. And it's always a thrill to get to work with those people and publish their work. The previous publisher taught me that nostalgia was a very broad umbrella. And so yes, I loved the golden age of radio, and I used it as a springboard to learn more about old movies and old books and the big bands. But I also knew that a 64-page publication devoted entirely to radio would have a fairly limited appeal, particularly if you didn't know radio. Whereas with the Digest, we're lucky in that we like to make every article different from the one before it, so that if you have an article about Al Jolson, it shares the stage, so to speak, with an article about the movies of Otto Preminger, like Laura and Daisy Kenyon. And that shares the stage with an article about Chicago in World War II. Because we figure it's coming from Chicago, I think of this as our version of public transportation, which is if there's an article you like, great. If you don't, another one's coming. Every Saturday afternoon, I host the show Those Were the Days that introduced me to radio. It's on WDCB And of course, for your viewers, that would probably be wdcb.org, because I'm sure you will not pick up the station in Baltimore. And then at our website at nostalgiadigest.com, we archive each of our shows for a couple of weeks afterwards. So, yeah, there are so many ways to enjoy this material now, both the movies and the music and the radio shows, and it's really thrilling to see them grow exponentially as they have.
Is there anything else that you want to add?
Let's see, nostalgiadigest.com, your one-stop shop for all things nostalgia.
All right, well, thank you.
You're watching Books and Authors on TV Free Baltimore.